I would be all Big Ten with all my alma maters, but I guess I am now, so it's kind of interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about merchandising a retail store. Even though I worked for JCPenney for a long time, had mostly soft goods while I was there, although I did have furniture and luggage and things like that, but that's a little bit different from soft goods. But then I researched hardware cooperatives for my dissertation, so I was out exploring hardware cooperative dealers and found them to be a little more similar to what some of you all, or most of you all are doing. So Roger told me I had an hour, and I guess I have a little bit less than an hour now, and I'm like, holy Toledo, I have like 3 semesters worth of stuff that, I could talk about. So I tried to boil this down to 3 merchandising numbers to crunch, because I'm a big advocate of number crunching. I tell my students all the time because they look at me and they go, oh God, here she goes with the numbers again. Their eyes glaze over and all that. But, numbers are our friends. They tell us the things that we need to know about the operation of our business. And so we really need to keep a handle on a few numbers. So inventory turnover, GMROI, and sales per square foot, I think are the most essential if you're time crunched and you're trying to figure out what numbers I really need to look at. And then some merchandising considerations. So thinking about space layout and then signage. This is I don't know why, I just have a really thing about signs, good signs and not so good signs. And so we'll talk a little bit about outdoor signs and indoor signs. The largest asset that your business owns, what is that? So if you look on the balance sheet for your company, for most retailers, inventory is the largest asset. And so this is really, really critical then that we're grabbing hold of this inventory asset and making really good use of it. So valuing it is important. So working with your accountant to make sure that your valuation of your inventory is accurate, because that cost of goods sold, the value, is going to affect our gross margin and roll right down to the bottom line. And then we get into what Elizabeth talked about, the tax issue. So value is really important. Planning your inventory is also important. You can't have an efficient inventory unless you plan. And then managing and controlling. So what's working, what's not, and let's figure out and make adjustments. So would I be correct in assuming that the main objective of most of you is to make a profit so you can sustain a business? Is that true? Okay, yeah. Some of our students don't really quite get that, which is very interesting to me. I'm like, what's the point then? So assuming that, your efficient merchandise assortment then is a very critical tool that you have to make this profitability happen. And so we want to look at velocity of your inventory, how fast you're cycling it through, cost, obviously also important, and then your revenue. So we'll talk about those things. We've got 2 little tools, efficiency metrics, so our turnover and our GMROI, which will help us evaluate that. So first I'll talk about the velocity, and I've come up with a number of different definitions over the years for my students to help them figure out what this means. So it's the number of times that our average retail stock, not the total stock, but on average how much you have around, is sold and replaced during the selling period. Or you might think of it as the amount of sales revenue that's generated by $1 of average stock. Or just plain old how fast it's moving through your store. Okay, so that's what we're talking about with inventory turnover. So a couple of different formulas that you can use to do this. So I'm looking out to see if I can see eyes starting to glaze over now. Oh no, she's putting the formulas up there. So annual turnover, we can either do it in units. So this is just the total number of units that you have sold. I'm assuming probably for the year. You could do it more frequently if you want, but at least you should do it once a year. Number of units sold for the year divided by your average stock on hand. So I'm going to tell you how to calculate that in just a minute. You could also do it at cost. I think many of you value your inventory at cost rather than at retail. So you can take your cost of goods sold for the year, divided by your average stock on hand at cost. We'll also give you your turnover. Does anybody value at retail? Okay, we'll skip that one. Okay, so it's a fairly simple little equation there, right? It's just a division. I know this is why I try not to laugh at my students, but I sort of do. Because, it's just division. It's not like we're asking them to do calculus. So, cost of goods sold, dollars, $450,000, divided by your average inventory dollars, $105,000, gives you an inventory turnover of 4.26. Okay? Can everybody do that?
Do you have any thoughts on the use of average cost and last cost?
Oh, last in or first in?
Or average or last in?
You need to work with your accountant on that because it has tax implications. And I'm not a tax expert. If you're using average, it's a little bit different than the last in or the first in, because sometimes you're reflecting past sales or current replenishment, but it does have implications for your taxes. So
what are you referring to here?
The difference between your sales for the year and your cost of goods sold for the year. So it would be what you paid accumulated for everything for the year. Doesn't look like I'm answering your question. So average inventory, the denominator in this equation, I want you to think about, everybody just took inventory a month or so ago, is that right? Physical inventory? That would be your ending inventory for 2012, what you just did here a month or so ago. Look back at your books 1 year ago to the fiscal inventory that you took in 2012. That's your beginning inventory. So fiscal inventory for January-ish 2012 is beginning inventory. Fiscal inventory January 2013, ending inventory. Add those two together and divide by 2, and that's your average inventory dollars. Okay? And that cost of goods sold is just the sum total of what you sold for the year. Okay, so what does that mean? We sold and replaced our entire stock a little over 4 times per year. Or for every $1 that we had invested in our stock on average, we generated $4.26 in sales. Okay, so think your inventory moved through your store about 4 times for the year. So anybody concerned about cash flow? If you're concerned about cash flow, you want a higher turnover. So you need less cash. You pay more often, but less cash that you need. Does that make sense? Okay, so inventory turnover is one that I want you to do if you're not already doing it. How many people already do it? 1 person? Okay. It's your first homework assignment. Maybe I'll come back next year. Check on it. Okay, so you get this turnover number. So then you say, Leslie, what the heck does this mean? Is this good? Is this bad? I've got 4.26. So you want to think about what you can compare to. So comparing to perhaps an industry average would be a starting point. If you have some people in your network, you could compare inventory turnovers of various dealers. Maybe if you have several dealers that have similar types of operations, you could exchange your turnover numbers. So I went out to the retail census and pulled figures. The North American Industrial Classification System, it's not as fine as I would like because we have these 2 different codes, 444 and 443. feed stores, but not including the ones that sell for pets, or feed stores that do sell the pets. But here are two inventory turnover figures that you could use as a starting point. So 6.5 or 6.7. Okay? So what is an ideal turnover? Well, there's no magic turnover number. It varies by product, by vendor, by the type of store that you are. But just realize that your turnover can be too high. So that would generally indicate that your stock level is inadequate to support your sales. So you want to get that turnover figure up as high as you can, but not so high that you're starting to miss sales, that you run out of stuff when people come in to ask for it. So it's a balance. You've got to play with it a little bit to get where you need to be. Okay, so if that turnover does get too high, then either buy a little bit more on each order or buy a little bit more frequently. And that should help you get it back in line. Okay, so improving turnover, increasing those sales revenues, which is the top figure, while you keep your average inventory constant, or decreasing the average inventory but keeping the sales revenues constant. Okay, you can really give a super whammy if you do both at the same time. I think that's pretty hard to do. Okay, so inventory turnover. That's one thing that I would like to see you all do. What else besides turnover though? Because that's just talking about velocity. We need to think about cost, we need to think about revenue, and we need to think about our inventory level. So we need another little metric that squashes it all into the blender and gives us another number. So this number is GMROI, gross margin return on investment, or some people say return on inventory. Either one is fine. So this expresses the relationship between the average inventory cost and your gross margin. Okay, so our foundation equation is gross margin dollars divided by net sales times net sales dollars divided by average inventory at cost. Okay, is everybody turned off now? I got a double calculation. Okay, so I just want to talk about why this is important, how this mixes it all up. Your gross margin measures the difference between those sales and your cost of goods sold. So that's why we're getting the cost in there. This left side little ratio captures the efficiency of our net sales in generating gross margin. Okay, margin is good. And then this is our inventory turnover figure over here on the right side that we just talked about. So it's capturing our velocity. So we're going to put all these into the mix. So if you remember your algebra, we can simplify this because we've got net sales, numerator, denominator, do the cancellation. So on the bottom here is our simpler figure, gross margin dollars divided by our average inventory at cost. And that's our GMROI. Okay? So gross margin, probably you're getting this from your accounting systems anyway. It's net sales minus cost of goods sold. And then your average inventory is just what we talked about with inventory turnover. So you've already got that figure, you're good to go. Okay? So simple example here, gross margin of $25,000 and our cost $12,500. So you do the division, we have a GMROI of 2. So that means for every $1 invested in inventory at cost, $2 in gross margin was generated. Okay, so I went out to the retail census, got some numbers again, and we see a GMROI for feed stores without pets at 2.2, and then the pet-focused folks with a GMROI of 3. Okay, so those are your benchmarks that you can start and run that number and see how you compare. So improving your GMROI. Well, you could increase your gross margin dollars without changing your average inventory. So that involves your net sales and or your cost of goods sold. Or you could increase your inventory, so turn it over faster, but keep that gross margin dollars the same. So, in a nutshell, inventory efficiency, really critical, and you can help ensure that by maximizing your sales, minimizing that cost of goods sold. I understand a lot of you are really good negotiators, but then I understand also some of your suppliers are really supreme negotiators, so you're going to really have to brush up on those negotiation skills and maybe look at some cumulative discounts over time to minimize that cost of goods sold, and then minimize your inventory investment level, because you want to keep that inventory moving and you want to keep it low. Okay, lean and mean. That's what we're talking here. Okay, so is everybody okay with that? That's most of the numbers. I got one more real easy one. All right, so merchandising. Thinking about sales revenues, space allocation, I think is something that you might want to think about for your stores, and also layout and then the signage. So when you're allocating space in your retail area, think about the margin and the revenue that the different products generate. Because you want to give more space to the things that are generating sales and the things that are generating margin. So there's a little equation that you can take a look at, sales per square foot. Figure out the size just of your selling area, not your storage area, but just your selling area, and take the net sales dollars divided by that square footage. And that would give you your sales per square foot. You can do the same thing for gross margin as well. It's not as commonly done. Most of the time it's the sales. But I think for you all, if you're selling a lot of the premium feeds, you probably want to look at gross margin too. And that's going to be a real driver for the profitability of your business. Consumer physiology. Nobody ever talks about this, but I think it's really important. When we walk into a store, we come in from outside into a building, it takes about 5 seconds for our eyes and any other relative senses, or relevant senses, to adjust. Same thing, some of you have drive-ins. You come in from the bright outside and into the drive-in store. It takes about 5 seconds for those eyes to adjust to the different light situation. So, right inside your door, you don't want to have a whole lot of stuff going on because people are not going to see it because their eyeballs are still adjusting. Okay? So think about that when you're setting up what's right inside the door. And then consumer psychology. Think about destination traffic. Do you have customers who come in and say, I'm getting 5 bags of tribute and I'm out of here? Anybody have those kind of folks? I think a lot of people, right? Shopping with a mission, that's me. I'm not a big shop, I'm not a big browser. So you go in, get it, and get out. These people, the destination shoppers, come in, they go to the left. They can get what they want, boom, they're out. So, usually it's a staple kind of item that they're looking for, right? Put it to the left. Put those good basic items, the staple items, to the left so they can get in, get it, and get out. You also have shopping traffic. Coming in, yeah, I think I need some tribute, and maybe I need some dog treats, and maybe a new dog house for my dog. So they're going to kind of look around, see what you got. They come in, they go to the right. Now, I know it's hard to believe, go to Disney World and watch people, because even at Disney they do this. So, a lot of research that shows that this is the case. So, the high margin items, put them to the right of your entrance. So when folks come in, the browsers can go over there and look for the high margin stuff. The destination folks, zip in, zip out. So think about it, think about your items, what you've got that might relate to one or the other, and use that to set up your store. And also the jostling phenomenon. American shoppers, and we are somewhat unique, because this is not true in all cultures, we don't like to be jostled and bumped when we shop. Paco Underhill calls it the butt brush phenomenon. We don't like that in the United States. So, especially right in that entrance area, you don't want to make it real crowded. Let people kind of get in and feel comfortable with the space, and then work it out. Okay, so here is the proportion of margin generated by relative store areas. And I'm guessing that we would probably be lucky if there's one store among all of you that even looks anywhere close to being like this, right? Everybody's quite different. But this gives you a relative sense. When you come in, the areas to the right, you can see 20% margin and the 15s. And then to the left, kind of the 12s. And you go to the back, not much. Okay, so our shopping traffic, and the merchandise that might appeal to them, over to the right. Destination traffic over here to the left. So kind of a summary here of what I said. High margin shopping products, front and right. Your destination products, front and left. And then those seasonal goods. I know everybody's got some seasonal products. You want to put those in a high traffic area, perhaps straight ahead and outside of the sensory adjustment zone. You want people to see them quick, fast, because those seasonal goods, you got to move them. You got to get them in and out, because you don't want them hanging around. And then you put your register and any of the kind of low margin stuff in the back. So they have to come find it. Okay? So that's location. And then I want to just talk a few minutes about signage. Does everybody remember that song, Signs, Everywhere, Signs? Okay. Just people who are like 50 or older. Okay. So, all right. So why do we need signs? Yes?
I have a question back on space.
Okay.
You've got a facility that's kind of stored, and then we've got a drive-through load up, which has our storage. How do you treat the space in the store as far as determining the space usage?
Do the customers go in the storeroom?
Yes. We go into the what I call the store floor to pay for it. So
they drive in.
Now, the park.
The park.
Right. But we don't store a lot. We tend to use the floor for more of the higher margin shopping type of things.
Uh-huh.
So horse feed and shavings and things they'll pick up, poultry yards, things like that. We use the floor for poultry waters and feeders and some display things, but not a lot of feed on the floor. How do you treat that when you're talking about gross margin feed that you assume they know you have, but they may not? How do you display for that? Something they're going to pick up as they go through the drive-through. That isn't your inventory, it isn't in the store.
So they come in, they look around at the other things, but the feed, most of the bag feed is kept somewhere else, and you kind of load that for them?
That's what.
So maybe you have a small displays of the feed out on the floor that are really more for informational purposes?
Yeah. Or in case of wild bird seed, we'll store a smaller bag on the side to carry out even for them to carry out a 20-pound bag. If they want the bigger bag, they'll pick that up at the drive.
Mm-hmm. And so that you might want to have signage in there that lets them know that you do have the big bags.
My question is, you differentiate the value of floor space. When you go back to these space productivity things,
Like this?
that and the idea of sales per square foot.
Mm-hmm. You can,
What square footage do you use? Total warehouse area too?
well, you can, if you can break the space down, either perhaps by brand, and you run sales per square foot by brand, or you could do it by product or by animal, what makes sense to you. if you have a brand that tends to be higher margin than the other brands, you could do it like that. I think that there's a lot of different ways that you can run those numbers to answer the question that you're trying to figure out.
I guess the simple question is a lot of stores, they have all of the products in the store.
Right.
The back of that warehouse is just that. We incorporate our warehouse to actually drive through, we put signs there, and you can remind customers what else they can gather there.
Yeah, and I believe that the drive-thrus are kind of unique. There's not a lot of statistics and things about the drive-thru. It's a different kind of operation than a true retail store because you do have storage that's in a separate area. Typical retail stores, like your mall stores, they've pretty much gotten rid of their store areas because they have that replenishment that comes, at least once a week, if not 2 or 3 times a week. So it's coming straight from the dock out onto the floor because your storage space is not, it's a waste to have stuff sitting back there. But this is a little bit different because you've got different costs for your storage space.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The comparison is quite right compared to square footage given to that product line in the store. It may produce a lot of just margin, like that there's information.
Right.
I drop it over.
Yeah. So it's, I think you're even talking about a little bit of a cost-benefit analysis between the storage space and then your the retail space area and how much you can devote in the retail space area to the bulk products. So there might be some additional analysis that you would take a look at to see what works for your store. Okay, so signs, they're a wayfinding tool, both outside and inside. So they're helping people find you and find products. And then also a communication tool. So we communicate store image, store information, and product info using signs. So they can really help us out a lot, especially even inside when we don't have massive staff levels all the time to help people when they come in. So reading signs, easy to read signs, absolutely, I think, one of the most important characteristics of a sign. So the placement of the signs, not blocking the view of the merchandise, that the height of the sign is in or very close to our sight line. So it's not way off to the side because you're not going to see it, but it's not blocking either. So we've got to see it easily. The colors on the sign, they need to be high contrast, they need to be bright, because I've got to be able to see them. Okay, I can look across and I can see the Kalmbach feed sign back there in the corner because it's red and white. Those are good high contrast colors. The size of the print, tall and thick. Okay, fat, bold, hunky letters so people can see them from a long ways away. And then the text, be concise on your sign. Okay, you don't want massive stuff on there because I have to be able to read it in an instant, especially if I'm driving. Okay, which of these signs on this slide needs some significant improvement? Raspberry shortcake, exactly right. Why?
No contrast.
Somebody over here said it?
No contrast.
Yeah, you can't read it. The contrast is terrible. Okay, what about the strawberry shortcake? Not much better, right? Smidgen, but not much. Okay? So the danger sign, the caution sign, good. Bright colors, fairly fat letters, good contrast. Okay, so think about these differences when you're preparing signs for your store, both inside and outside. Okay, how about this sign? What stands out on this sign?
Go wild.
Go wild, right? What does that mean? Well, the fish stands out a little bit, maybe. Okay, but you really have to get up close to the sign to see that, they're trying to sell you some salmon, wild salmon. Okay, so go wild. Think about that on your signs. Go wild with your signs. All right, so graphics and text. We want to think about cognitive processing of information. Graphics or pictures are processed more quickly and easily than words, text. So graphics, pictures are good. And they're also recalled more quickly. The last slide. What was on that last sign that I showed you?
Fish.
Go wild and fish. What was the name of the company? Something River. Yeah. So see, you remembered not all of it, but you remembered the go wild, didn't you? Okay, so text. Processing words takes effort and time. And so high imagery words or sensory words actually are really good because at the same time you're reading it, you're evoking these images. And so it's more powerful. So if you can use high imagery words to evoke images and things like that, you're going to increase understanding. So I think that the previous sign, the go wild, they were trying to evoke ideas about wild salmon. So the idea was good. I guess the execution was just not quite there. Graphics and text together are very powerful. So powerful than either one alone. So if you can combine them both in a nice, simple, concise, high contrast sign, you're good to go. How do you like these signs? Any improvements that you'd like to make on these? Well, they are pretty close together, aren't they? So it's kind of almost information overload. Yep. How about the content on the sign? Fresh? Yeah, so we got 3 freshes. Okay, but sweet corn, what do you think of when you think of sweet corn? What's a really good characteristic of sweet corn?
Sweet.
What? Picnic. Well, yeah, that's where we eat it, right? One of the many places. But tender, right? Tender sweet corn. Cherries. My husband would say tart cherries. I would say sweet cherries. Okay? So sensory. Fresh is okay, but can we get a little more exciting than fresh? So generally I like these signs, just maybe tweak the wording a little bit. They got the nice big visual, they've got the big fat letters, so they're easy to read and you can read them in an instant.
Does alliteration help with that too?
I'm sorry?
Does alliteration help with that? Like first and blueberry?
I would think so. I think that's a good one. It's very sensory, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's 2 more examples of using graphics and text together that you can use for inspiration. And then we also want to think about cognitive processing of information in terms of the text and the placement on the sign. Americans process from left to right, top to bottom. So you want to have your most important information top left. That's where people are going to remember it, process it the best. All right, exterior signs on the exterior business. This is a marker for your store and identifies who you are. And especially if you have new customers that you think are going to be coming periodically, it's really important to have a good sign outside. So is Todd here from the Animal Station? So I hope he let me take pictures, so hopefully he doesn't mind. Okay. So I thought this was a pretty darn good sign. We've got his logo and his name right up front and center. Nice big fat letters, some bright contrast, yellow and black. To the right, we've got the phone number, we've got the store hours. Left top, we've got the address, we've got the manufacturer logos down at the bottom, and then we've got some information there about what all he's got going on inside that store. So this sign is right on the front of his building. And so like when I drove there a couple Saturdays ago, and they changed the street signs, I didn't tell them this, but one of the street signs, you know, was like, the kids probably were playing, and so I thought I was on the wrong street. And so then I was like, oh, that must be it down there. And sure enough, I pulled up and there was this sign right there and I said, this is the place. So it was good because I knew that this was the place. So, good information. You want to make sure that your exterior signs out on the roadway promote safety for drivers and pedestrians, perpendicular to the street. This is why I don't go to Dublin, because they don't permit this zoning wise. The height of the sign is in the sight line, your print's tall and thick, high color contrast and very precise. So you can see the sign, it's the name of the business and the store hours. So people that are looking for the business as they're driving by see it and they instantly make the decision, this is where it is. So nice sign for the exterior. Okay, giving people a reason to stop. So what's hot? What's new? What's your deal of the week? What shipment did you just get? Okay, so you can see the Lindale Garden, flowers and veg sale. So they're telling people what's going on this week. Now this sign, the bottom right, Sugartown Strawberries, this is kind of a crazy sign. How about the top part of that sign? Okay, not so good. Way too much, little skinny, tiny text. Ooh, you couldn't even take 5 minutes to read that sign. But look down at the bottom, asparagus now. I'm going there. I love asparagus. It's right there. So that's the one thing I can see. So that part of the sign is really good. Okay, and then brew bakers, are they anybody from brew bakers here? Yeah! Yeah! You guys are great. Okay, so they have this real nice sign out in front of their location out west of Trenton. And down at the bottom here, they've got what's going on, special deal for the week. And they even have their phone number on there. So really nice. And it's big, fat letters, nice contrast. So, okay, how about these? Strawberry Hill, what do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs up, why? Okay, so we can see the trees, so we got a visual image, we know it's trees, we can process that real quick. The numbers, nice, tall, thick, and we have the hours. So it's great, we're going to drive by, see it in an instant, and we'll know that's the place. How about the one on the right, Farm Fresh Produce? Thumbs down? Thumbs down, why? Letters not big enough? Little skinny? Kind of hard to read. And then that border around it, you know, if the sign was really big, the border might be okay, but it's all kind of smashed in there, it makes it hard to read. Okay?
Contracts are two different signs. The one is very deep, so it says what kind of a business it might be, compared to the other one not being very deep, it might be a good job.
Okay, so a little bit about store image then is kind of conveyed by these signs. So he was saying that the one on the left, the tree farm, is a very neat, looks kind of almost professionally done. So we were thinking that's a real, true, bona fide business. The one on the right looks, you know, a little not so professional. And so maybe this is a, you know, fly-by-night kind of farm or something. So the characteristics of your sign are communicating information about your image as a business. So that's really important. So thank you. That's really good. Interior signs. So again, I took a picture here of Todd's business here because there was one thing in here that I really liked. And see how he's got signs all the way, you can do the pointer. Anyway, but up along the roof, he's got the same sign. Whoops, sorry. Same sign, repeated, all the way down, up along the roof line. Repetition is really good. So if you can keep repeating that message, that's powerful for people's minds. So if you have the ability to do something like that, that's a nice tool as well. But wayfinding within the stores help customers find the way when they're inside the store. Again, communicating information about the store and the products, and giving customers a reason to buy. So letting them know characteristics of the products, your store, etc. So you've probably seen in grocery stores, and there's no reason why you can't do these kinds of signs, the big aisle signs. If you have a store where people are wandering through your aisles, then help them find what they need. Might be brands that you put up there, might be the animal, however you have your store organized. Okay, brand signs are going to be important. People know the brand they're looking for, so they're going to look for that sign. If there are other things that are interesting or that pull your customers in, Georgia peaches, if there's something like that for animal food, and that might be something that you want to have a sign for. Health benefits, like the, was it Paul that talked earlier? The guy about the horse feed? Wow, there's some great stuff in there that should be on signs. Fantastic. You know, the omega with the eggs, I guess that's in some feed. So any kind of interesting characteristics that makes the product unique, you want to pull that out on the sign so people can see that and be drawn to it. And then, much like the outside signs, inside signs also, you can give people a reason to shop. You know, what's hot, what's new this week, whatever. So be thinking about those kinds of things. Okay, category signs I think are something also that I wanted to talk about on this one, and that is within your store, assuming you have a store where people are walking and navigating through the store, see the seasonal bulk sign there. So if you have seasonal goods, bird seed or something like that, that you might put a sign up to help people find that. Or if they're, again, the brand, the animal, whatever. So you know the kind of categories that are driving people into your store, and those are the things that you want to feature to help people find their way through the store. Because they're not there every day like you are. And so they need help. And then point of sale signs, and I think this is something that again relates to the information that Paul provided. Tags or little brochures that you can put out by the merchandise that explains what it is that's great about this. You know, these the Kalmbach feeds have such great nutritional value compared to most of the competitors. And this is something that you really want to push to your shoppers to let them know this. And so if you need to, work with the company to come up with some collateral to help you push those benefits to consumers, I think this is something that would be worthy of a conversation. And then I also just have to put this out there, desirable store characteristics. So we've done lots and lots of surveys of consumers of all different kinds of stores. And these are the things that just come up time and time again. Doesn't matter what kind of store, where the store is, it's always true. Cleanliness, really important. People want to shop in a place that's clean. And especially when you're dealing with food kinds of products. Even though it's for animals, people are very picky about their animals too. So cleanliness is important. Neatness. So things are very easy to find. They're arranged logically so that you can easily explain to a customer, oh, dog food is in aisle 3. or whatever. So it's very logical, and they can go and find it quickly and easily, and then your aisles are clear. And this is where, at least, I haven't been to Tractor Supply a whole lot, but a lot of times the big box stores, you go even during the daytime, there's pallets and all kinds of stuff in the aisles. And it makes it hard for the customer to navigate. So if you keep the aisles clear as much as possible when the customers are in the store, it makes it much easier for them to do their shopping. And then a well-lit store interior, also very important, so we can see the products. So those are some key things that I wanted to talk about, and they're really telling me we needed to finish on time. So I had a couple things on visuals that I was going to think about, but I think we're just about at time. So I'm going to stop and now see if y'all have any questions, and then we'll be done. And the food's coming. Questions?
Sign clutter. Unfortunately, too many signs, and they're pretty easy to get pictures out there now.
I would say yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't have a magic guideline for you, but you know, when one sign per product is probably enough. You got to look. You got to use your judgment. And if it's making you dizzy, if you can't see things because there's signs in the way, that's too many. And one thing you can do is ask your customers. If you have a good customer and they come in and say, hey, we're trying this out, check this out, let me know what you think. And get their feedback on it. And that's usually a pretty good way. And good customers are always happy to give you feedback, which you probably don't. So, I don't know, does that help?